Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. It's going to be nearly 70 degrees today and I want to take full advantage of this weather and do a little pruning, particularly on my capitata yews. I have several throughout the landscape and right now is a really good time to do it. Pruning the yews is a pretty easy thing to do. You don't have to worry about cutting too deeply into them because the cool thing about them is they flush out really well. So like a lot of conifers, if you cut them too deeply, they will not regrow. Yews are not one of those things. So even if you make a mistake, they will flush out fresh growth. And I've got an issue here. Let me step out a little bit further. So this guy is overgrowing a pathway. I didn't cut him back last year, or whatever. Didn't cut him back last year, and we had a party last year and there was some questions about where our front door was located because the cherry tree, I didn't prune anything last year. The cherry tree got too big. This is a little twist cherry. So as soon as that flowers, I will prune that back this spring, but I can get after this guy right now. So if you have yews in your landscape, a good time to prune them is late winter, early spring. You just want to be mindful of not pruning them too late in the season because generally I cut off around the end of August because what happens is when you prune a yew, that signals them to put on new growth, and then we're getting really close to our first frost in the middle of October, and what will happen is if these yews have fresh growth on them, that hard frost that happens will kill it back, it'll burn it, and it just doesn't look so great. It's not going to kill it, but it won't look right. So I stopped pruning, and I generally just give them one prune a year, although last year I didn't do any pruning, which is why this guy looks really, really shaggy, and I have an issue going on up here. So you can see there's no definite point. You can't really see a central leader on this yew. So a central leader is the middle branch or the most upright branch on a conifer. Well, actually, fruit trees, every tree has a central leader. So there's some competition going on up here for who is the central leader. So if you don't have a defined central leader, what ends up happening is your conifer or your deciduous tree can end up losing the shape that it's supposed to have. So this is a capitata yew, so it should be triangular, pyramidal in shape. It's kind of losing that because these guys up here are duking it out. There are a few different things you can use when you're pruning your yews, and I'm gonna use this guy today, but first let me start off with the little guy. So if you just have a few random cuts to make, pruners are a perfect choice. You just want to make sure that when you're pruning anything and you're moving from plant to plant or shrub, tree to tree, whatever, you're disinfecting these because you don't want to transfer disease throughout your garden. So for some selective cuts, a pruner is a really great choice. I'm going to use my sharp loppers today, and just because I like the effect that it has, and it gives me a really nice clean cut. If you're short on time and you don't mind a jagged cut, you can go the route of the electric hedge trimmer. This makes short work of anything. It just kind of makes the cuts gnarly cuts. It's not a clean cut. I like a clean cut, and I also like the effect that this gives anything that I'm pruning, the shrubs. It just gives it a more natural look, and I like that. It has a looser habit when you prune it with one of these guys. So you just pick your weapon of choice and get after it. So I'm going to start trimming this yew here. I've got another capitata yew on the other side of the garage that has a very unique shape. I don't know how I attained it, but it looks like a Hershey Kiss. So I'm going to give that a little trim too, to just rein it in a little bit. But the main one is this guy here. This one needs some training, and I need to make it very obvious how to enter my front door. Now I'm trying to decide who my central leader is going to be because there's really no clear leader coming out of the center of the plant. They're all kind of coming out along the sides here. So I think I'm just going to go in and start shaping it, and it'll all grow and I can keep tweaking it until I get it the way I like it. And with yews, once they reach a certain height, if it's the height you want it to be, like this is the largest that I want it to be because I don't want it to completely overgrow the path that leads to our front door, you can trim back that central leader and then the rest of the plant will fill in, but you don't want to cut it out completely because then you've got the dueling branches up top trying to figure out who's in charge here. So I definitely have this at the height I want it to be, and I'm just going to go in and that looks better already. And don't be afraid to step back and eyeball it a lot. You know, you want to make sure you've got the right height. Yews are very forgiving because even if you do overcut, they will fill in because they grow on old and new growth. So you don't have to worry too much about that, but just take your time. There's no rush. And when you're pruning this, you want to make sure that you're not pruning the lower part or the skirt back too far. You want to have it so that all parts of the shrub are still going to get plenty of light. If I cut back this part too far, it's not going to get a lot of sunlight. It's going to be shaded out by the branches that are longer above it. So just keep that in mind and keep stepping back and watching it. And before you prune anything, really consider what your goals are. For this, my goal was to redefine the pathway and then also to fix that gnarly growth up top and help kind of determine my central leader here so it's not growing so crazy. And I should have started from the bottom here and worked my way up, because the diameter of this is going to determine the shape of the rest of the way up. That looks a heck of a lot cleaner. And look, I have a sidewalk. So there's actually a path that leads to the front door. So let me take it to the other side. The sidewalk is completely cleared off and now it's passable. And this is everything I got off of just one tree. Not bad. So you'll see a lot of twiggy growth in here as well, and that's all going to fill in because the sunlight's going to reach in there and trigger those things to flush out again. And I'm liking the shape of it. I might go in and tweak a few things with the pruner, but other than that, I like the shape of it. Now, I don't know how obvious it is to see a Hershey Kiss shape here, but this yew kind of flares out like that and comes around, and it almost mirrors on the other side. Not quite as much, but I do need to rein that in a little bit because I have a path that comes here. It's been washed out by, we've got a downspout here, so we've got a lot of debris and soil here. There are some stepping stones through here, so I'm just gonna cut this away ever so slightly. I'm gonna avoid stepping in the bed. The beds are really wet. I don't wanna compact the soil, so I'm just gonna try to stay on those stones, clear them away first, then step on those, and then cut what I can for right now. And now that I'm looking at it, I really don't care to go in with a big lopper. I'm just going to use my pruners and trim away a few branches because I kind of like the shape of it. All right, I just cleaned this up a little bit. Didn't have to do a whole lot of pruning on it because I really did like the shape. It looks a little less like a Hershey Kiss, which wasn't that bad, but just cleaned up some of the scraggly bits and it's looking good. These two yews here on the edge of the patio, these are capitata or captain's yews. This one especially looks really, really shaggy. They were very small when I put them in and I've never pruned them. So I'm gonna give them more of a pyramidal shape, which is what they should have when they've been properly trained. So this is what they look like before pruning. And now my yews actually look like captain's yews. They've got a really nice shape, and if there are any scragglers, I can go in there later with some pruners and just give those a snip as well. I've got a lot of debris last year's growth still standing. I leave that up all winter, and I'm not going to do it today, but when I do it, I do what's called the chop and drop method because there's a lot of overwintering insects. There's a lot of native bees that use the hollow tubes of last year's perennials like coneflower. I've got perennial hibiscus in here. There's probably plenty of things that are overwintering in there that I don't want to get rid of. So if I were to cut that all back right now, and throw it out, I'm losing all of those good things. So what I like to do is chop and drop, and just cutting it down and leaving it in the soil. And that way I'm doing two things. I'm saving all of those native bees and whatever else is overwintering. Could be some bad guys in there too, but I'm saving the good things, the pollinators, so that I'm keeping them in my garden. And I'm also allowing the debris from last year to just decay in the soil, so I don't have to bag any of that stuff or compost it. It composts in place. So it's a win-win for everybody. And that is how I prune my yews, and also how I replenish the soil every year and keep all of those native species, the native bees and whatever else is overwintering in last year's growth, in my garden. So I hope you enjoyed the video, guys, and I'll catch you in the next one. See ya. Thanks for watching.